The phone call came at 3:17 in the morning. I know the exact time because I stared at the clock for a full minute before answering, my heart already racing. Mum never called this late. Never. When I finally picked up, her voice was barely a whisper, so quiet I had to press the phone hard against my ear. "Sweetheart, don't come home. Whatever you do, don't come home tonight." The line went dead before I could respond. No explanation. No goodbye. Just silence and the sound of my own panicked breathing in the darkness of my apartment. I tried calling back immediately. It rang once, then went straight to voicemail. I called Dad's phone. Voicemail. My brother Marcus. Voicemail. It was like my entire family had vanished into thin air in the span of 60 seconds. I sat on the edge of my bed, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. My mind raced through possibilities. Break-in. Medical emergency. Gas leak. But none of those explained why Mum would tell me to stay away. If something was wrong, wouldn't she want me there? Wouldn't she need help? I'd moved out 2 years ago at 26, finally getting my own place after saving for years while working as a nurse. My family had always been close, the kind that had Sunday dinners every week without fail, where Mum made her famous lasagna and Dad told the same stories we'd heard 1,000 times. We weren't perfect, but we were solid. Also, I thought, looking back now, there were signs. Small cracks in the foundation. I'd chosen to ignore, because acknowledging them meant admitting everything I believed about my family might be a lie. I didn't listen to her warning. Of course I didn't. What daughter would? I threw on jeans and a sweater, grabbed my keys, and drove the 15 minutes to my childhood home in complete terror. Every red light felt like torture. Every minute stretched into an eternity. I called 911 on the way, told them I'd received a disturbing call from my mother and was worried about a home invasion. The dispatcher said officers would meet me there. That should have brought comfort. It didn't. When I turned onto Maple Street, I could see my house at the end of the block, every light blazing. Not unusual for my family. We'd always been terrible about turning off lights, but something about it felt wrong. Too bright. Exposed. Like a stage set waiting for a performance. I parked across the street, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. The front door was closed. No broken windows, no signs of forced entry. But Mum's car was in the driveway. So was Dad's. And Marcus's truck. Everyone was home. So why had she told me to stay away? I waited for the police, my eyes never leaving that front door. 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. When the squad car finally pulled up, 2 officers approached my window. I explained everything, the phone call, the deadlines, the silence. They exchanged a look I couldn't read, then asked me to wait while they checked the house. I watched them walk up the driveway, knock on the door. It opened immediately. And there was Dad, smiling like nothing was wrong, shaking hands with the officers like they were old friends stopping by for coffee. My stomach dropped. One officer walked back to my car while the other stayed talking to Dad on the porch. "Ma'am, your father says everything's fine. Your mother made a mistake. She was having a nightmare and called you while still half asleep. She's very embarrassed. He says she's upstairs resting now." I stared at him, my mind refusing to process the words. A nightmare? Mum had been wide awake, terrified. That wasn't sleep confusion. That was real fear. "I need to see her," I said, already opening my car door. The officer held up a hand. "Your father's requesting you come back tomorrow. Says she's mortified about worrying you and needs time to calm down." I looked past him to the porch, where Dad stood in the doorway, backlit by all those blazing lights. He was watching me. Even from across the street, I could feel his eyes on me. Heavy. Warning. The officer followed my gaze, then looked back at me. "Is there any reason you'd be concerned for your mother's safety?" he asked quietly. Everything in me screamed yes. But what could I say? My dad looked calm, friendly, cooperative. My family's cars were all there, no signs of disturbance. And I was the hysterical daughter who'd called 911 over a confused phone call in the middle of the night. No, I heard myself say. No, I guess not. The lie tasted like ash in my mouth. The officer nodded, handed me his card, told me to call if I had any other concerns. Then both officers got in their car and drove away, leaving me alone on that dark street, staring at my childhood home like it was a stranger's house. Dad stood on the porch for another minute, his silhouette motionless against the light. Then he stepped back inside and closed the door, but he didn't turn off any lights. And I understood why. He wanted me to see him, wanted me to know he was in control. The lights weren't carelessness. They were a message. I drove home in a daze, my mind replaying that whispered warning over and over. Don't come home. Why? What was happening in that house that Mum needed to protect me from? I barely slept, checking my phone every few minutes for a call, a text, anything. At 6 a.m. I tried calling again. Mum answered on the first ring, her voice bright and cheerful. Too cheerful. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry about last night. I had the most terrible nightmare, and I guess I called you while still half asleep. Your father told me you even called the police. I'm mortified. Every word sounded rehearsed, scripted, like she was reading from a page someone else had written. Mum, are you okay? Are you safe? I asked carefully. There was the briefest pause, so short I almost missed it. Of course, sweetheart. Why wouldn't I be? Listen, let's do dinner this Sunday like normal. I'll make lasagna. We can laugh about this whole silly thing. She hung up before I could respond. That was the moment I knew something was deeply, fundamentally wrong. My mother had never hung up on me first in my entire life. She was the one who'd keep talking until I had to make excuses to get off the phone. I went through the motions at work that day, taking vital signs and administering medications while my mind was miles away. During my lunch break, I called Marcus. My brother was 30, worked in construction, and had always been the golden child, the favorite, the one who could do no wrong in Dad's eyes. Hey, about last night, I started. He cut me off immediately. Mum had a bad dream, she already explained. Let it go, sis. His tone was cold, dismissive. Marcus had never spoken to me like that before. But something's wrong, I pressed. I know it is. He sighed, annoyed. You always do this. Always looking for drama where there isn't any. Maybe that's why you needed to move out. His words stung more than I expected. The implication was clear. I was the problem. The overly sensitive daughter who saw danger in shadows and created issues where none existed. I wanted to argue, to make him understand, but the line was already dead. 2 hang-ups in one day from my own family. That had never happened before. I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot and cried angry, frustrated tears. Was I losing my mind? Had Mum really just been confused? But no. I'd heard her voice. That was fear. It's real, raw fear. That Sunday I went to family dinner like nothing had happened. I needed to see Mum in person, to look her in the eyes and understand what was happening. When I walked in, everything seemed normal, too normal. Mum was in the kitchen, the smell of lasagna filling the house. Dad was in his recliner watching football. Marcus was at the table scrolling through his phone. It was like a photograph of our family from 5 years ago, perfect and untouched. Except it wasn't real. It was performance. Mum hugged me tight, but her hands were shaking. I felt it. So glad you're here, sweetheart, she said, her voice still carrying that false brightness. Up close I could see dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. She'd lost weight. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Mum, I whispered when Dad was out of earshot. What's really going on? She glanced toward the living room, fear flashing across her face so quickly I almost missed it. Nothing, honey. Everything's fine. But her hand squeezed mine hard, once, twice, 3 times. Our old signal from when I was a kid, the one that meant I need help but can't say it out loud. Dinner was torture. We sat around the table like we'd done 1,000 times before, but everything felt wrong. Dad dominated the conversation, talking about work, the neighbors, everything except that phone call. When I tried to bring it up, he cut me off smoothly. Your mother already apologized for worrying you. Let's move past it. It wasn't a suggestion. It was an order. Marcus nodded in agreement, shoveling lasagna into his mouth without looking at me. I was the outsider now, the troublemaker disrupting their perfect facade. I watched Mum throughout the meal. She barely ate, pushing food around her plate. Every time Dad spoke, she tensed slightly. When he reached for the salt, she flinched. Small reactions, barely noticeable unless you were looking for them. But I was looking. I was seeing everything I'd somehow missed for years. How Mum always checked with Dad before expressing an opinion. How she apologized constantly for tiny things. How she'd stopped talking about her own interests, her own dreams, until her entire existence revolved around keeping Dad happy. After dinner, I helped Mum with dishes, while Dad and Marcus watched the game. Mum, please, I whispered urgently. Tell me what's happening. I can help you. She kept scrubbing the same plate over and over, her movements mechanical. There's nothing to tell, she said quietly. Then even quieter, he checks my phone now. Every call, every text. He'll see if you contact me. My blood ran cold. Mum, that's not normal. That's not okay. She finally looked at me, and what I saw in her eyes broke my heart. Exhaustion, defeat, and underneath it all, a desperate, trapped hopelessness. Go home, baby. Please. Just go home and be safe. That's all I want. For you to be safe. From what? From who? From Dad? I left that dinner knowing I couldn't save someone who wouldn't admit they needed saving. But I could prepare. I could watch. And I could be ready when Mum finally reached out for real help. I started documenting everything. The times she seemed scared. The way Dad controlled conversations. Marcus's complicity in whatever was happening. I researched domestic abuse, read stories from other women, learned about coercive control and financial abuse and all the invisible ways someone can be trapped without physical bruises. 3 weeks later, the second call came. 2:43 a.m. Mum's voice, shaking but clearer this time. I'm leaving him. Tomorrow. I've hidden money. Packed a bag. Can you meet me at the bank at noon? My heart soared. Yes, absolutely. What do you need? She listed items quickly, efficiently, like she'd been planning this for months. Maybe years. Don't call me back. He's sleeping, but he's a light sleeper now. I'll see you tomorrow. This time when the line went dead, it felt different. Not like an ending, like a beginning. I couldn't sleep. At 11 a.m., I drove to the bank Mum had specified, a branch across town she'd never used before. Smart. Dad wouldn't think to look there. I sat in the parking lot, checking my watch every 30 seconds. Noon came and went. 12:15. 12:30. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? It was Marcus. His voice was cold, furious. You need to stop putting ideas in Mum's head. She tried to leave this morning. Tried to take money that wasn't hers. Dad's money. Money he earned. We stopped her. She's fine now. She's calm. But you're not welcome here anymore. Stay away from this family. The call ended. I sat frozen in my car, Marcus's words echoing in my head. We stopped her, not Dad. We. Marcus had helped. My own brother had participated in trapping our mother. The golden child wasn't innocent. He was complicit. Maybe he'd been learning from Dad all along, preparing to become the same kind of man. I thought about calling the police, but what would I say? My adult mother tried to access her own bank account. There was no crime, not one they could prosecute anyway. I drove to the house. I didn't care what Marcus had said. The door was locked, curtains drawn. I knocked for 10 minutes straight. No answer. I could hear the TV inside, knew someone was home. They were ignoring me, shutting me out, making it clear I was no longer part of this family. I left a note under the door. Mum, I'm here whenever you're ready. I'll wait as long as it takes. I love you. Then I sat in my car across the street for 6 hours until Dad came out, saw me, and called the police for trespassing. I left before they arrived. The next 3 months were hell. I tried everything. Called Adult Protective Services, but Mum told the caseworker she was fine, happy, not being abused. I tried contacting extended family, but Dad had isolated her from them years ago, and they believed his version of events. The crazy daughter causing trouble. I sent letters Mum never responded to. I showed up at Sunday dinners I was no longer invited to until Dad threatened a restraining order. I was losing her. Worse, I was being painted as the villain in a story where I was trying to be the hero. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Marcus called me 6 months after that failed escape attempt. His voice was different, shaken. I need to talk to you. Can we meet? We met at a coffee shop, neutral territory. He looked terrible. Thinner, dark circles under his eyes. I saw something, he said without preamble. Dad and Mum were arguing. She said she wanted to visit you. He grabbed her arm so hard I heard her wrist crack. She didn't cry, didn't scream, just went quiet, like she was used to it. And I realized I'd seen it before, 100 times. I just never called it what it was. Marcus had been living at home, saving for a house. He'd seen everything but had convinced himself it was normal, discipline, traditional marriage. Dad being the head of household, all the justifications abusers use and enablers believe. I'm sorry, he said, tears in his eyes. I'm so fucking sorry. You were right. You've always been right. We need to get her out. Together we made a plan. A real one. Marcus would stay in the house, be Dad's ally, keep him comfortable and unsuspecting. I would prepare a safe place, gather resources, document everything. It took 4 more months. 4 months of careful planning, of Marcus slowly earning back my trust, of Mum's situation getting worse behind closed doors. Then finally, on a Tuesday morning when Dad was at work, Marcus called. Now, come now. I drove there in record time. Mum was waiting on the porch, one small suitcase beside her, her wrist in a brace. Marcus stood next to her, his jaw set with determination. We didn't speak. We just loaded her into my car and drove away from that house with all its lights and all its lies. Dad came to my apartment that night, pounded on the door, screamed that Mum was his wife, his property, that I'd stolen what belonged to him. I didn't open the door. Neither did Mum. We just sat on my couch, holding hands, while he raged outside until the police finally escorted him away. Marcus had already filed a police report about the broken wrist. Mum filed for divorce the next day. The restraining order came a week later. It took 30 years, but she was finally free. And the family that had tried to trap her. We left it behind, all those bright lights and perfect Sunday dinners, and built something new, something real, something safe. The door to that old house closed forever. And this time, when someone whispered, "Don't come home," it wasn't a warning. It was permission. Permission to leave. Permission to survive. Permission to choose ourselves over a family that had chosen violence. And we took it.